Hello and welcome to the FPL Scope podcast, or the Gameweek 34 edition of the FPL Scope podcast, is what I usually say. And I am Matthias, and with me here today I have Kevin, one of my co-hosts. He just returned yesterday to Norway, so he's going to be back on the podcast next week. But for now, it's just me and Kevin. Kevin wasn't here last week either because some issues. He was sick, so I'm glad to have you back. Glad that you're healthy, and yeah, you are not too happy about FPL currently. You are not too happy about Everton, but to focus on the positives, you are very happy about the New York Knicks. So, how are you feeling right now, Kevin, in general?
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I just don't want to think about football right now. Everton lost, Hoyf lost, Barcelona lost, everyone lost. So fucking shit, let's be honest. But in terms of NBA, I am beyond belief. I'm very happy and all this type of stuff. But that's the thing about football. It's week in, week out. It changes, hopefully. I mean, in the case of Everton, we haven't won in 5 games at home, or 1 in 5 or something like that. And with Hoyf, we lost 4 games in a row. With Barcelona, I mean, we're dropping points left and right. So it's extremely frustrating. But that's the thing about football. You always believe and you always have the hope that things can get better. And I'm sure it will.
Fair enough. Yeah, for anyone that don't know, HF is Helsingborg. Kevin is from Helsingborg in Sweden, and they went down to the second tier, and they're off to a really terrible start. But hopefully they can turn it around and go up. Hopefully, but who knows? But at least for you, New York Knicks are doing well. My Minnesota Timberwolves in the NBA went out in the first round. Injuries and stupid stuff from them, but either way, we said we shouldn't focus on the football, but that's sadly what we have to do with this podcast because this is a Fantasy Premier League podcast. So both in terms of FPL and in terms of football, it's the same for me. It's just been terrible. The whole midweek really has been terrible in terms of the results. But we got to just move on and take a look at my terrible team because I made 2 transfers this week, and that was Fernandes and Kane out. I think Kane, I didn't double check, but I think Kane had 2 assists. He probably got some bonus. I don't know. I haven't checked the bonus even. But he got 2 assists. Fernandes got 1 assist, and Fernandes really should have scored like the deciding goal as well. When it was 2-1 for Man United, he had an easy shot, but hit the target or hit the bar and out. So yeah, I brought in Salah and Jota against my personal team West Ham, and of course that ended the way it always ends. West Ham lose anyway, and my players don't produce anything either. So pretty terrible game week. I mean, I have Rashford, I have Haaland captain, which sort of saves it, but everyone has those players. So my only shining light was really David Raya, who I kept in goal against Chelsea. I was hoping for 0-0 there, but Chelsea are just terrible and conceded twice. So, but Raya got bonus points. He's been a decent goalkeeper for me. Finally, I've had some decent goalkeepers, but that's pretty much my game week. I don't have any chips left. We're going to the home stretch now, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with my team going forward. But I usually always am. But I'm really unhappy with the team that I just left behind because once again I messed up with the transfers. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think I messed up with the transfers, or would you have done something similar if you're in the same position? Because you obviously we're going to get to your team, but you've also sold Fernandes and Kane recently.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think about my transfers? Do you think it was sort of like too quick, or do you think what do you think now in hindsight, of course?
I mean, in hindsight, of course, but I think Fernandez, we saw the picture of him in the booth and everything, which is a recovery thing, sure, but it was hard to dictate whether he'd do it. Personally, I think bringing in Salah in view of the double game week next week, and also the fact that, no offense, he was playing West Ham and has been in decent form and etc. It made perfect sense to make the move. So I can't fault you for that at all. And in terms of the transfers itself, I mean, I was telling you throughout the entire time that I do think Kane will do something against United, but it's more
Yeah.
you got to future proof. Kane is single game week. He looks like he got injured towards the end of the game as well.
Mm.
So there is some justification into making the moves. I mean, you're not alone in selling Kane. You're
Yeah.
not alone in selling Fernandez as well. So um, I think it's perfectly fine, to be completely honest. I mean, the minimum requirement that we sort of set for ourselves to have a good week is to get at least 60 points, and to say, even though you basically traded away 20 points or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Um, you still got close to the 60-point mark. So I think there's nothing to really worry about
Yeah.
because it's all about next week as well. And next week you're set up for a huge week because you have at least 11
Yeah.
double game week players.
Yeah, we'll get to that eventually. There's some issues there as well, but we'll get to that eventually, like I said. But Salah as well, you mentioned he played against West Ham, and he has a great record against West Ham as well. So I really expect him to score, and obviously I was happy he didn't because it was against West Ham, but they lost anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We have the same issue with you and Alexander Isak. Isak got 1 point, which is also bullshit as well. He had the most beautiful assist ever for the fourth goal for Newcastle, but it was not counted as an assist for FPL. I haven't double checked it because I was too busy editing everything for the podcast as it happened, but for me it looked like either was a shot or it was a cross or it was a pass to the guy who got the ball. I don't understand why they didn't give it, but that's just another like point reduction thing this season.
I get why they don't give it to him in the sense that because I wrote to you straight away as it happened that they're not going to give it to him simply because it took a deflection heading into the back post. But the whole point of the pass was him trying to get to someone in the back post. So it took a deflection, sure, but I think the intended target was still someone on the back post.
Exactly.
So I don't care if it was aimed towards the first man or the second man who's on the back post. If it hit someone, and which it eventually did, it should count it as assist. Even it's not like it took like a huge drastic deflection that went completely, sideways. It was going in a straight line. Essentially, it still went pretty much in a straight line, but still they refused to give it, which is really stupid.
Yeah, I like you. I think the intended target was to get it to the back post where they scored. So either way, it's kind of bullshit. My final thing with my team was in between having Estepinian or Shaw as my starter, potentially Botman as well, but those guys ended up with the same amount of points anyway, so it didn't really matter in the end. I'm really disappointed with Estepinian just in general. Like, he's been really bad lately, and as well as Trippier. We'll get to Trippier eventually, you don't worry. But let's move on to your team first. You as well, you did the Kane out move. You got Watkins in. Watkins had a much better fixture, on paper a lot better fixture against Fulham at home, but that ended up backfiring as well. So yeah, what was your thinking with the transfer, and what do you think about your team in general as well?
So basically, for me, the most important thing was trying to figure out how do I get Kevin De Bruyne in, because De Bruyne was always on my radar. I obviously regret not doing it for the Arsenal game because I had him for the previous Arsenal game just to basically because I knew he'd go crazy against them, and he normally does. He's a big match player in many sense of the word and everything like that. But essentially, I just wanted to do a weak punt simply because Watkins has been on fire. Aston Villa, generally speaking, are the best team in the league in terms of form lately and all this type of bullshit. So, 20 matches with a goal or something crazy like that. It's
something like that.
Ridiculous stat that, and of course, me, the Unai Emery truther, and us both with La Liga experience and stuff like that, we knew that, yes, he might have been a laughingstock at Arsenal and whatever, but we knew that this could definitely happen. And we've been saying Watkins, even before he became the Watkins fire that he is today. But essentially, I just bought into that. I was just like, you know what? He didn't score in the free hit. He's gonna try and do something in the next game, and he came close. And there were a lot of chances that should have fallen to him, but didn't. And you know what? They got a gritty 1-0 in the end. So fair enough. Kudos to them.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Aston Villa were the much better side as well, especially in the first half. Like, it looked like they could have scored a lot more goals. Watkins wasn't that impressive in the first half, I guess, in terms of the rest of the team, but he easily could have had more goals. And that's what he has been doing lately as well. Like, he had, I think it was against Bournemouth, where he scored like the 2-0 goal right at the end to get some points. So, like, he's been getting points like that every single week, but this week, for some reason, and last week, it just didn't work out for him. So yeah, it's a bit unlucky with Watkins. We had some banter in the group chat with Watkins because normally what I because you did it also because you were considering Jota as well, but now Jota it looks like a bad pick. So like he looks like a worse pick now than last week because now he got subbed off after blanking. So I guess that's not the worst to not have him. You can also keep Watkins for the long run, I think, rather than getting Jota. We'll get to your team eventually, but I think that's interesting. The other point I want to just bring up with your team is the goalkeeper decision. You have Kepa rather than Raya. They played each other, obviously. So you also have Chilwell rather than Henry. So you lost a lot of points from that, but what do you think of that decision? What went into that decision for you and stuff with Chelsea and Brentford at home?
It's really stupid, but I thought for once in my fucking life that Chelsea would react to things happening around them. But nope, just like Everton, they're just like, you know what? Just go for it. And I think the most annoying thing was when once I found out that Reece James was out, my thinking with at least starting Chilwell was he's gonna have to be the creative outlet for them from defense because they don't have Reece James anymore, right? And he
Mm.
has been the better player out of the two, but I think it might have been me also just thinking, okay, we know that Brentford are notoriously bad away from home. Surely if this is a game where Chelsea can at least get 0-0 or something, it would have been this one. But
Mm.
nope, of course not. It says everything when Thomas Frank comes out and say, "Oh, once I saw Chelsea's lineup, I was so surprised. They showed so much respect to us. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God, just dissing them left and right." So yeah, and I was really confused by their starting lineup as well. Joao Felix on the bench, Mudryk on the bench, all these wonderful
Yeah.
attacking players that would have probably done better on the bench because Frank Lampard is not a competent manager. So
Yeah.
yeah, I regret not hedging my bets better there. I could have. My thinking was if both teams concede, Arisa will get the save points because last time, the whole Raya Kepa thing, or yeah, Raya Kepa thing was it ended up being they both got the same amount of bonus points on saves and all this other crap, and
Yeah.
so I was thinking, what, Chelsea might bounce back, but clearly they didn't, and it's frustrating to see 14 viable points that I could have had, or I mean, I probably wouldn't have started Henry, but I could have started Raya
Yeah.
potentially, but I,
That's how.
I it's bullshit. I don't really care at this point.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. Like I think Kepa versus Raya was like a 50-50 decision. A lot of people had to make that decision, but I think it's the best play to do Chilwell rather than Henry because yeah, I think it was Chelsea at home. It's sort of 50-50 who you want to go with Chelsea or Brentford, but Chilwell has more attacking threat than Henry, especially not too long ago. Chilwell looked like an amazing pick, but now after we all got him in our team, he's been pretty dreadful in the FPL. So that's just how it is for us this season. But moving on to someone else who has a pretty terrible season, but had a decent game week, and that is Kimo, our final member of the FPL Scope. He used his wildcard in Game Week 33, and his wildcard was pretty similar to what I advised people to do on my weekly wildcard draft last week's well, not last week but last game week's preview, Game Week 33 preview. But he had a little bit less money than I had to use for the weekly wildcard draft, so he has Castagne rather than having Stones, which ended up costing him some points as well. But he had steal in goal rather than having Estepinian, and that was a penalty save and 10 points for steal. Really good for him there. And other than that, pretty similar team to both of us, really. But he also has bench boost left, so he's going to bench boost next game week, and we'll look at that later. But are there any picks from Kimo that you have question marks about, or any picks you like in general?
No, I think generally speaking, it's a very well balanced team. It will be very fun, as we'll see very soon, that I'm going to crush his hopes and dreams because he has a city midfielder that I don't have, and I have a city midfielder that he doesn't have that he absolutely adores and loves. So we'll get into
Yeah.
that a little bit more, and I'm actually completely I guess I was out of the loop in the sense that I wasn't aware that he didn't go with KDB for whatever reason. I thought he did. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll go more into that. But Other than that, I think it's a very good team. I just hate Everson. Like I get why people have him. It's just he's just Leicester suck.
Yeah.
We're bad, but they're just as bad. So if we lose to them, my God. But yeah, anyways,
To be fair to Everson, though, he's actually been pretty decent from what I've seen. It's just
yeah.
Leicester still concede a lot of goals, but he's had a lot of huge saves, and he was close to getting bonus in the double game week, I think, and stuff as well. But yeah,
Let me rephrase that. Leicester suck.
yeah,
What I've seen of Everson, actually, I should not lump him in with Ward or whatever the hell his name
yeah,
was.
Danny Ward, yeah,
That's that the Daddy Ward sucks. I
yeah,
mean, in the sense that, okay, I mean, that seems like a very harsh thing to say, but Everson is 1,000 times better. That like reaction save thing that he did
mm,
was absolutely crazy. So you know what? Yeah, fine. It's just I might have gone with Raya personally or Keppa if Keppa was doing good,
yeah,
but now I'm considering selling Keppa. So you know what? Yeah, it's a pretty good team, and all things considered, it's just a question of now whether Jota actually lives up to the hype because he did not look good against West Ham,
yeah,
and the whole back trouble thing that he was having
yeah,
probably didn't help.
yeah. We're gonna see about Jota as well when you come to the plans for Game Week 34. We also
Sure.
have one more manager to talk about, and that is the manager of the week. And since everything happened just now, like the number one spot for manager of the week was fluctuating right at the end of the game week as well. So this guy, his name is Jeff. He's actually top of the league in the FPL Scope League, so he's doing really well. And as you can see, he had Steele in goal. He also had Mings. All the guys who did really well in our league had Mings. Got 15 points, got a goal and a clean sheet and 3 bonus. And he also had Madison, got some points for Madison finally, and his transfers were actually also selling Kane, but for Haaland, and he also sold Saka for Grealish, so that ended up working out for him. And he also has Watkins as well, but we'll get to see his plans eventually. But he's top of the league, and he's looking pretty good. So yeah, what do you think of his team? He has used all of his chips as well, so he didn't really have much else to do, I guess. But
I think it's a wild, wacky team, which is fun. Seeing Madison again feels like such a trip. Um, Other than that, yeah, I think it's interesting team. He must have gone quite a lot of decent returns with Ben White, I'm assuming as well,
mm,
in those random weeks where when Ben White scored and etc. So, yeah, I think generally speaking, pretty good lot of outliers there. It's now just a question of whether you're going to sell Tony and maybe maybe even Trippier if you're going to go try and get Trent, if you're going to try and catch up on some of the double game week players because I don't know how well set up he is considering
yeah,
the fact that he has Watkins and Mings and etc. So and Tony who's only got a single game week, right? So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if he does some sales because even selling Tony for Jota gets you another double game week player. So, yeah, that's what I would suggest. Maybe try and load up on some double game week players where you can.
yeah. We'll get to his plans as well towards the end of the podcast. Moving on, we have the fixture ticker, and now finally we have all the fixtures remaining on the board because we also have a Game Week 38 now. So we have 3 double game weeks, 2 like smaller ones, but 1 big one now coming up in Game Week 34. And yeah, there are some interesting numbers as well. Like you have some teams that are doing really well. Man City. The interesting thing about Man City though is they are top for expected goals conceded, but they keep conceding that 1 goal every single time. Like I don't understand how they do it. Like they've always done it as well under Guardiola. They just keep conceding this weird goal towards the end of the match. So I don't know. What do you make of Man City defensive targets, seeing as they have such good expected goals conceded numbers and their fixtures in terms of conceding goals? Fulham, terrible offensively. West Ham, they can easily keep the clean sheet against West Ham. Leeds, pretty bad team. Everton, Everton can't score. Like they have such easy fixtures, but they keep conceding like the weird goals towards the end of the match. So what do you feel about City defensive assets first and foremost?
I don't hate City defensive assets, especially John Stones as of late, because he's got a knack for goals.
Mm.
So it's just that they clearly have like a lapse of um focus because it's always towards the end of the game that they just randomly concede. It's like they've already decided that the game's already decided who gives a shit if we concede, which sucks for anyone who has them defensively. I know a lot of people used to have Ederson like every week and all this type of stuff, and he just randomly concede a goal towards the end. So, and to be fair, it's not like Arsenal. It isn't unfair that Arsenal scored considering that they were trying chance after chance after chance. It wasn't like I didn't feel it was as one sided as it seemed, even though it was pretty one sided because Holland could have easily gotten like 3 goals, 3 assists if people did stuff correctly, including himself. But I think, yeah, I do like the West Ham home game. I do like the Leeds game. Everton, it's so hit and miss. Yeah, either we'll get a 1-1 draw against them or we're going to lose 6-0. So, um, Chelsea, yeah, I reckon they'll pump them like 4-5-0. Brighton away, that can go either way. Brentford away can go either way. Fulham away, Mitrovic is still out.
Yeah.
So it's just a
I
question of,
mean,
again,
if you look at
what did
Fulham and their expected goals, it's pretty bad. 5.97. So they just no, they actually are in the bottom three. I've made a mistake there. Forest are not in the bottom three. So Fulham are actually in the bottom three for XG, and they've been really bad like for a while now. Like it's not just a recent thing. Like with Mitrovic out, they really struggle to score. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sold on getting a City defender, but if I were, it would be Stones
Yeah.
because he's just been so solid for them. And clearly, it's you know, one thing is if it's sort of like a once in a while sort of thing, but it's become a pattern that they do aim for Stones and Stones. It's always the De Bruyne towards the left, and then he's headers it across goal, and he's done that quite a few times this year. So I would say, yeah, 100%. Stones is looking very likely. I mean, he's a ball playing defender anyways,
Mm.
so he likes doing that odd random pass as well. So yeah, I think Stones, but that's it.
Yeah.
Everyone else seems to be so heavily rotation risk. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
either rotation risk or price or something
yeah,
like that. And Stones as well, like he plays in that sort of DM role, like the new thing now in the Premier League is having the inverted fullbacks into the defensive mid position, like Trent is doing currently for Liverpool as
yeah,
well. And Stones plays there, and he's scored in the last 2 games as well. So we know what he can do on offensive set pieces. He's always been good in that respect as well. So I think Stones is really good as well. We'll get to that with my team, but moving on to the attacking side of the coin, I guess that's a term. But yeah, the number one offensive team is Newcastle. So that's very interesting to me. Is Newcastle, they don't have doubles in 34 or 37. They do have the special double game week 36, where a Newcastle captain option would be interesting. But the thing about Newcastle is I'm not sure. Like obviously Isak has been really good lately. We both had him for a while, and he's amazing. He showed that again today against Everton with his assist, which wasn't an assist. But yeah, Isak is nailed. Trippier is nailed in most people's teams. But before we get into Trippier, because we're going to talk more about him later, because he's sort of tapered off by a lot the last like 10, 15 game weeks. But if you have Isak and Trippier and you have a final Newcastle spot left, which player would you pick? Would you go with a defender like Fabian Schär? Would you go with Botman, who's a bit cheaper? Would you go with Callum Wilson, who's been just scoring pretty much every game, whether he comes in as a reserve or if he starts? He seems to just score every game. He had a beautiful goal today against Everton as well. So who do you think is the third best or second best even? Because Trippier isn't really the second best option anymore for Newcastle either. So
I mean,
who do you think
if we're
are the
going,
best Newcastle options?
I think for me personally, it's a it's a hot 4 players that I look at Newcastle that have passed the eye test and everything like that. It's obviously Axel and Isak. I'll always say that even if he scored 5 goals. Uh, Callum Wilson, obviously, for the goals that he's contributing, either as a sub or as a starter. That's the growing pain that Eddie Howe is an idiot who can't play both at the same time. I don't understand how you can't play both at the same time
Yeah,
because when you do, they both do fun and great things and you guys win. So why
yeah.
not just start both? But I get it, it's the shape of their matches and or shape of their team and etc. But two other guys who have passed, I think Joelinton
Yeah,
has been very good lately, and I
100%.
think he's finally the player that I remember from Hoffenheim. So, like, I thought he was amazing at Hoffenheim. Just as much as I thought Firmino was amazing at Hoffenheim,
Yeah.
and look at how those things sort of worked out. Joelinton's won back his spot, and become a great player again, and etc. The same with him. And obviously we know what Firmino's done, but um, yeah, I think Joelinton is a good option. I also think Joe Willock has been really good
Hmm.
lately too. I mean, the assist he did today was phenomenal, and he's always been that. I mean, there's a reason why he sparkled so brightly when he went there on loan. Of course, he had a few down years after it becoming a more permanent move, but essentially he's in red hot form, just like the whole team is essentially. So for me, it's those four. It's just a question of which one do you go for? Obviously, it's a toss up between Isak and Wilson. If you've got Isak, stick with him. If you've got Wilson, stick with him is what I'd say because
Hmm.
I think Isak is the starter generally speaking, especially when Newcastle. Let me put it this way: in my understanding of how things are going to play out, I think he'll play against Southampton. He'll start. He'll definitely start against Arsenal, and this is Isak now. I think he could get rested against Leeds, and that's when Wilson will play. Brighton and Leicester. Again, that's one of those where it can be a toss up. It depends where they've cemented themselves in the Champions League race as well. And in Chelsea away, I think I think all the big matches he's like will 100% start. But when it comes to these sort of like smaller ish matches, that's when Wilson can. But hopefully, maybe we'll see both of them playing finally in one of these random smaller games because when you have two home games, you just need to go for it. Why not just play both?
Yeah. I really like the fact that you brought up Joe Linton. If you hadn't, I probably would have now. But the thing I wonder about with Newcastle as well is obviously Game Week 36. They have the best
Yeah,
fixtures because Brighton
yeah,
have two tough fixtures. That they have Arsenal away in the same match where Newcastle have Leeds away. That's pretty much, well, Arsenal have conceded a lot of goals, so that doesn't really need to mean much. But in terms of captaincy for Game Week 36, this is a bit early. Obviously, we're going to talk more about
yeah. Of
this when we
course.
come to that game week. But do you think you'd go with one of the strikers, Wilson or Isak, or do you think you'd punt on someone like Joe Linton or potentially even Trippier? I know people will do that, but like in terms of captaincy for 36, I think that's really interesting. Do you do like a punt on Joe Linton as a captain? Because he's been, like you said, he's been looking really good lately, and he's been getting into the box. Like his goal today, just got into the box and scored like a nice header. Like he has a lot of ways to score as well. Like he used to be a striker, now that he's back to being, or he's playing as midfielder now, but he's proven that he can actually score some goals after having some tough years at the start for Newcastle there. So what do you think about Gaming 36 captaincy? Do you think you'd stay away from Newcastle in general, just go with a Brighton player who's more secure in terms of playing time, or do you go with like someone like Joe Linton, or do you go with one of the strikers for Newcastle?
Personally, I think it's gonna have to be one of the strikers. Like, unless I'm like really reeking for desperation because now you've caught up or Keem was caught up, then I'm like, you know what? I'm going with someone else. But I think by the time of that game week 36, we'll have a clear view of is it Isak or is it Wilson? And
Mm,
if it's Wilson, then we'll go with Wilson. If it's Isak, we'll go with Isak. Because I think at this point of the sort of fancy year and etc., I think safe is the better option, right?
yeah,
I mean, I don't really hate Liverpool against Aston Villa at home. Yes, Aston Villa have been good, but again, Salah randomly turns up at home and all this type of stuff. City at home against Chelsea. I mean, I said that would be a punt. So, oh wait, sorry, that's game
Gaming
week.
36 we're talking about. Yeah,
Sorry, that was game week 37. I mean, like for example, United against Wolves. Rashford,
Yeah.
a single game week sort of captain. And we've seen that single game week captains in these sort of smaller double game weeks have worked out perfectly fine. So, but of course, Newcastle have pretty easy fixtures there in Leeds. Brighton's maybe not the easiest fixture, but
Brighton keep
you
conceding
know,
as well, so
yeah, and also Newcastle are really good at home, which is the most important thing, right?
mm,
So, yeah, I think it's going to be either Isak or Wilson. It's just
yeah,
unless Jolinton all of a sudden is just going crazy, then
yeah.
yeah, that's the only time I think I'd consider captaincy at the very least. But bringing him in, for sure, I think that you might be able to even bank on me doing.
Yeah, we'll get to see eventually. But yeah, Joe Linton is really interesting, like we said now a couple of times. But I also agree with you. I think I'm just gonna go with Isak as my captaincy, as I have Isak right now. I think most likely Isak and Wilson both play. They start one match and play like 30 minutes in the second one, so they both get 120 minutes total. And I think that makes them the best captaincy option that week, considering the fixtures that they have and double game week fixtures. Just they get well, seeing if they play 120 minutes, they get 3 points from playing it by themselves. And I think both can also score when they come on. Like they've shown that each of them have shown that when they come off the bench, they can get points in a hurry. And Newcastle are scoring 4 or 5 goals pretty much every game now. So yeah, I think those two guys are the standard options for captaincy. But I really like the Joe Linton punt as well if you're really out there. And yeah, like you said, Game 34 and Game 35 will give us some more answers as well. So I think that's just really interesting. But yeah, moving on to the weekly wildcard draft. I actually don't have Joe Linton in this team, but I would consider it, especially for Game 36. I might do something like that myself. But I do have Botman, so he sort of blocks everything. But anyways, this is the weekly wildcard draft where I try to pick what I think is the best team in FPL going forward in the next 4 to 5 game weeks. And it's a pretty similar team to what I had last week. There's just a few changes. Jota actually just drops out entirely. I think I needed more money for getting in De Bruyne, so that means that both Grealish and Jota go out, and practically Greenwood and De Bruyne come in for about the same price, I think. And then Isak replaces Solanke because yeah, Isak I think is essential to have as well. He got really close to getting into the team last week, but it was just a price thing that made me not have Isak. And then finally Konate, the selling Jota opens up another Liverpool spot, and I think Konate for the price, because I only had 4.8 left for a defender, didn't have enough to go with someone like Trippier or go with someone like Shaw. So I think Konate was the best option for 4.8 and below. He played pretty much 90 minutes every single game until the West Ham match, where he had sort of like some small injury issues and was left out. But it seems like he's going to be the starting defender, even though Matip scored. So yeah, those are the 4 changes to last week's team. I still really like the team. I like Trent. I like Stones. I think there are a lot of good players in this team. But are there any, apart from Everson, because we know you don't like Leicester goalkeepers, but there's always going to be the Leicester goalkeeper as number 15. That's been a tradition in this team. But anyways, are there any players you have question marks about? I don't have Trippier. Do you think I made the right decision with not having Trippier, or do you think I should still have him in just for old time's sake?
I think it's it's so funny. Like I think the Trippier, like because I'm going to be starting Trippier against Southampton personally. That's easily a game where you can get like 15 points. So it seems like a harsh thing to drop him when we know that there are some really good matches coming up and etc. So I think personally for me, I think it's fine like as a weekly wild card that you have this. It's just now I, I'm starting to lose hope with Brighton in terms of how they're playing and stuff. Like McAllister is penalty dependent like crazy,
Yeah,
which you don't have. I'm glad that you have Matoma in March. But even Matoma, ever since the Wan-Bissaka sort of masterclass, he has not looked. He's looked a bit shaky and etc. But other than that, he's got a double game week. He's probably going to score a hat trick, and then every life will resume as normal. So I think this is a perfectly fine team, and I wouldn't change much because I think the most important thing that you've addressed is making sure that you have Haaland, De Bruyne, and Salah and Rashford, and
yeah,
yeah, it's just a question of whether we know for sure if Konate is playing or Matip is playing, but I agree with you. Konate was essential when he's been playing, and he's been really good as of late. So yeah,
Yeah, I
I
also
think
think
he'll be
apart
a
from
draw.
Greenwood, pretty much every single player can play in a starting lineup. Like even Kofal, like
Yep.
he has a double game week and then he has like okay-ish fixtures after that. So I think
Yeah.
even if Konate doesn't start, he usually when he's also like the perfect guy to have as a differential because he plays either 90 or plays zero. Like it's very rarely that he comes on to play like a couple minutes. So I think that's why
Absolutely.
he's an interesting pick as well. And we've seen that like last year he scored a couple goals in the Champions League as well. Like he can score from attacking corners, and he was really close I think 2 game weeks ago from
Yeah.
scoring as well. So yeah, I quite like the Konate pick, even though he's sort of like he was the last. He was sort of the last player in the squad because I needed to get like one decent defender as well in the end, and he was the one I landed on. But yeah, I quite like Konate as well. But like I said, I'm also kind of iffy about the Brighton attacking options, but seeing as they have 3 double game weeks in the next 4, sort
Yeah.
of just have to go that way because Estupinian hasn't been that good. The strikers you can't really rely on either Welbeck or Ferguson, or even Enciso who's listed as a striker as well. You can't really depend on that much. I guess I could fit in one of those guys, Enciso for example, for Greenwood and potentially get Joe Linton in midfield. That could be an option, but yeah, I think Mitoma March as well. What they've shown this season, they still have something to say in this team, and I think they deserve the spot in the team as well, even though they have been sort of disappointing lately. March he got an assist, so he's been decent for me. But yeah, I quite like the team as well. Like you said, very happy that I managed to get Haaland, De Bruyne, Salah, and Trent. Even with my terrible budget, I managed to get those players. So you guys watching probably have a better budget than me and can get an even better team than this. So yeah, I just think it's an interesting team, and I'm quite happy that I kept a few of the players. Like Stones, I've had for two game weeks now. The 2 game weeks he scored, really happy about that as well. But yeah, that is the weekly wildcard drafts, and now we're going to move on to future plans and look at my current team, my setup, and like we talked about earlier, John Stones, he's on my mind. I think he seems like the best defensive option for me. I'm probably going to sell. That's so my decisions here is who do I sell out of Chilwell and Trippier. So let's just do that first before I move on to the next move.
Chilwell.
Who I sell Chilwell rather than Trippier.
Oh, of course, it's Chilwell.
Yeah. So no, just easy
100%.
decision because
The easiest should say, oh my God, Chelsea suck.
okay.
If my
So
brother
Chelsea
was
are
here, I'd
terrible.
say it in his face. Yeah, Chelsea suck.
Fair enough.
It's terrible.
But then who do I bring in? Is it Stones? Is it Dalot? Is it Konate? I have a lot of different options there as well. Or do you think Stones is the best pick? Or do I just do that first? If you do just a single transfer that I'm planning on doing, I only have 0.2 in the
Stones.
bank. So yeah,
Stones.
Stones as well. So you think chill out the Stones is the best move
Yeah.
in terms of defensive assets?
Yep.
Okay, so the other thing, well, just the one thing I got to note as well, because we're going to get to both you and Chemo's teams, and you both get to play Isak and Trippier, and I'm so jealous. Like, looking at that bench, it does not feel good at all to have those guys on the bench and no bench boost. I'm really sad to not have any of those guys. So what I have been sort of thinking about is downgrading one of the midfielders or something, or one of the strikers, so I can get Isak into the team and then upgrade someone else. Potentially, I don't know if I can get. I probably can't get De Bruyne, but like getting someone like Maris or some punt like that, or potentially Foden. I don't know. That Grealish, I'm a bit worried about because they have a lot of
That's the,
fixtures.
that's the thing I was gonna say. I'd say out of everyone there, in terms of uh, being essential, Grealish might be the one that you could bench. Because again, if because they that's if Brighton finally live up to the hype and stuff like that, then McAllister and all these guys, you're gonna want to play them. They're gonna want to play Stones if you bring him in, and Grealish, like you said, could be the one who gets rotated out because they do have a Champions League game on the 9th of May and all this type of stuff. So he might just play one of the games instead of two. And he didn't really do much in the Arsenal game. Like he had a few good passes that Holland probably should have converted, but I just think that the Southampton game is just it has pretty much 3-4-5-0 written all over it. So it's just a question of, and I've always been an advocate of, if they have a really good single game week sort of match that looks as good or if not better than some of the double game week players, take the punt, go for it.
Yeah.
There's not much you can lose. For example, like Luke Shaw looks really, really, really good when he does play and stuff, but United always concede.
Yeah.
Like for example, there, and I know you have Shaw with in mind with this and etc. And because you know what a threat he is, and again, double game week means double the chance because if for whatever reason Newcastle somehow lose to Southampton or just win like 1-0, you're going to be super disappointed. So I totally get it, but if I were you, Grealish is the only one that I could consider maybe benching,
What about
simply
Jota?
because no, I think Jota. I think the thing with Jota is that it's just them at home, and the fact that Tottenham are sort of up and down. Fulham suck, and if you hit that Fulham suck match or Tottenham suck match out of one of those two, you're golden. And I think that's why I don't think you should bench Jota at all,
Yeah.
unless unless before now on Saturday you hear like basically like, yep, he's re-aggravated an injury or he's a doubt or anything like that, then yeah, sure. But I think, look, let's quickly just go through your team. You're gonna of course play Raya. If Stones is the one who comes in for Chilwell, you're gonna start Stones. Estupinian, even though he's been shit lately, maybe Estupinian could be someone that he bench, right? Because
But then
do
that leaves me
we
either Trippier or Botman as the options.
Yeah, and Trippier, you'd rather start Trippier over Botman anyway. So, right? Or would you start Botman over Trippier at any point?
I'd say
No, you
Trippier or
wouldn't,
Botman,
right?
of course, 100%.
Yeah, and Trippier against Southampton could be, like a 15 pointer. Yeah, it's just a because I'm just saying Estupinian has been terrible and Brighton have been conceding a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the sort of proposed
I mean,
things you could do.
I'm thinking more in terms of transfers, like maybe switching out Estupinian and Grealish and getting Mitoma and Trent, for example, and then I can put in Trippier that way. Or rather than going with Mitoma, I can get like some shitty midfielder like Andreas Pereira or something. He's not shitty, but he's really cheap, and then
I don't hate that.
then I can start Isak rather than that midfielder, and then have well, I can even do. I can do Grealish. I can downgrade Grealish to Andreas, and then I could do Chilwell to Trent, really. That's the other option I can go with. And then start Isak. I still bench Trippier, but I have Trent rather than Chilwell, and I have Isak starting rather than Grealish with money saved in the bank, I guess. And that's another option I have. So I don't know, do you prefer that option, or do you like the Chilwell to Stones easy move?
I think Chilwell to Stones because
Yeah.
look, at the end of the day, they might still just play Wilson because of the form and the match. He played really well today, so
Yeah.
like it wouldn't surprise me if they save Isak for another game because this is the easier game sort of thing or whatever. Because in some sense of the word, every match for Newcastle is a final, but Isak isn't 100% match fit, and they're being really careful with him. And in the case of Wilson, I mean, he has no issues at all, so he can play 90 minutes. He seems to be Mr. sort of marathon man in the sense that he can just play and play. And I guess with Isak, they're just being really careful, which is really irritating because I think Isak is match fit and ready. And when he's played for Sociedad, he used to play all the time. So I don't know why all of a sudden now they're being so careful with him. But yeah, I think Chilwell to Stones benching Isak, it won't suck. Personally,
Yeah.
I'm going to be starting almost all three, maybe. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping for Fiesta 5-0. Botman finally scores a bicycle kick or goal or whatever. I mean, if he scores a bicycle kick, I'm very happy. But Botman is so huge and has never scored it. pisses me off to no end. So,
Yeah.
and he's just always I don't know. I've always liked him. I liked him at Lille. I still like him at Newcastle, but he's usually the one that causes the mistake and stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
but
I think just
it's
going back to my plan again. I think also just selling Grealish is also just too risky. Like all of a sudden
yeah, I
he plays
think
both matches and then he can score and assists in both of them. You know, City are so
yeah,
good, so
yeah.
it just wouldn't
I
feel right
mean,
to either bench or sell him. I think so. I think I'll just stick with the Chilwell to Stones and just hope that Newcastle is struggling against Southampton for some reason. But they're probably, knowing my luck, they're going to get like finally Trippier will get his 15-pointer, Isak will get his hat trick, Botman will get his bicycle kick, like you said, and then I wish I had my bench boost. But anyways, let's move on to someone who actually gets to use his Newcastle players, and that is you. There's one error here as well. I didn't change the Bueno bench thing. That's Botman against Southampton at home, but other than that, it should be fine because you've already done your 2 transfers. That's why I had to edit it last minute, and that's why it's sort of jumbled up. But anyways,
yeah.
you've made 2 transfers already. You sold Chilwell as well, and you brought in Bueno, and that is just to facilitate Demarai Gray to Kevin De Bruyne, which is like the biggest upgrade ever in FPL, I think, especially on current form. So how excited are you about having De Bruyne in your squad now, finally?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I've had Kevin De Bruyne in the past this year and stuff like that, and then Guardiola decided that he wasn't essential, whatever bullshit term he used, and then that's why I got rid of KDB and City, some of the City assets, and because we had to facilitate double game week, triple game week, all this other whatever bullshit FPL planning that's happened this
Just
year due to
Just one thing about your team. Botman is in the starting lineup, but it's Trippier who's missing out. So Trippier should be where Botman is, and Botman should be where Bueno is. So that's who's missing. So just to clear that up.
Correct. Yeah, and I don't have Luke Shaw, so
Yeah, like I said, last minute changes. Anyways, who do you have rather than Luke Shaw? Who do you have as the
Trippier.
defenders?
It'll be Trippier and
You have Trippier,
and
Botman, Estepinian, Henry, and Bueno.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it would have been it's
yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't mind having Shaw, to be fair, but yeah.
So yeah, are you starting Botman over Henry, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so, because
so Shaw should be Trippier, and other than that, it's fine. Yeah.
Not really, but yeah. Because I don't have Solly March either.
Yeah,
I have McAllister.
Okay, I should edit
it doesn't
this.
matter. It doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter, because by the time I'm done with my team, I'll probably go -12 anyways.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, essentially, yeah, I have no idea who my vice captain is going to be either. It's probably going to be Salah, I guess.
Yeah.
Or is Salah going to be my captain, man? I don't know. No, that's stupid. Of course, I want to get Haaland. No, of course, I'm bullshitting. Of course, I'm going to have Haaland, and I want to have him as captain when he fully breaks the Premier League record as well. So, yeah, 100% it's going to be Haaland. But I don't hate Salah with 2 home fixtures, because Liverpool are good at home. Other than that, you know, very, very happy with the team, all things considered. Benching Watkins feels a bit iffy, because Watkins feels like the sort of, when United concede, it feels like a Watkins goal, or Watkins pen, because he's now their pen taker as well. So yeah, and hoping for a little bit more Martinez shenanigans and all this type of stuff too. So it'll be an interesting game, and one that I'm definitely going to be following. But in terms of my team, all things considered, I very stupidly didn't plan ahead that well, in the sense of, like, I knew I wanted to get KDB, but if I was really being smart with certain things, I would have looked into getting maybe Stones. I should have sat on Chilwell as long as I did, to be completely honest, but it kind of worked out because I was able to get KDB in. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually kind of like, you don't have 11 or 10 double gaming players like I do, but you have Trippier and Isak and then Botman as well. So I think you're lucky to be able to start all those Newcastle players, and you have Watkins like you said, you transferred him last week or this game week, and it didn't work out now. But I think you can just keep him now for the end of the season. Just bench him in this game week and just keep him. Like, they don't have the best fixtures going back to the fixture ticker, but still, they've shown that they can score in any game. Man United concede against anyone currently, so you can easily score there. Wolverhampton can easily score there. Spurs concede against everyone, can score there. Liverpool as well, not the best defense, can score there as well. So they do have tough fixtures in terms of getting results, but in terms of scoring goals, I think they can score quite a lot of goals, even though they haven't had the best XG and stuff. But yeah, I think Watkins isn't too bad to have now. I'd probably prefer. I mean, I still prefer Jota for the upside currently, but I don't fault you going with Watkins for the Fulham match as well. So yeah, I think you have a pretty good team once we get the correct team into the graphics. Course, yeah. I could edit that in post as well. I should have just kept quiet and not said anything and edit it in post, but whatever. I don't really have that much time because I have work tomorrow and it's already 12:30 a.m. So yeah, let's move on to Chemo's team instead. So yeah, this is Chemo's team, and his potential move is Trippier. He'd actually go with selling Trippier. He doesn't have Chilwell. So he'd sell Trippier to get Shaw, to get another double game week player. Because as you can see, he has the bench boost activated. You can see that from the shitty graphic down below there. We can barely see like the edge of the thing. That's how it looks in FPL. It's just like a small edge around the bench. But he gets to play Isak and Trippier as well. Or not Trippier now, because he's selling Trippier for Shaw. But he gets to play Isak as well. And has like an okay bench for a bench boost. So yeah, do you agree with his move of Trippier to Shaw? Would you go with someone else? Would you go with, because selling Trippier, you can get Stones, you can get all those guys. So would you rather go with Stones rather than Shaw? Because he has that city
option. He already has Dallo, right?
Yeah.
What? United concede. So I don't know if, I mean, in an ideal world, he would have had Shaw and Stones.
Yeah.
Personally, I think maybe Trippier to Stones might be the better move.
Yeah. But you agree with selling Trippier in this case? He doesn't have any money in the bank, that's why he can't do Castagne to someone like that. Or
yeah, of course.
He doesn't really have any way to upgrade unless he does Jota to someone, I guess.
Yeah, personally, I think I'd go with Stones. I think it's better to, hedge your bets and spread. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think if he does the Jota to Stones as well, he potentially could upgrade Castagne to, probably not Shaw, but maybe Konate? I don't know. He could do that as well, but those are his options. He's currently going through all of his chips. He could also, this is also actually an interesting point of contention, because his bench, yes, it's good, but it's not like perfect. So would you use the bench boost, or would you rather do triple captain Haaland in this game week? That's the bigger question for me.
That's not a bad shout, but it's just a question of which other double game week would you want him to use his bench boost?
I mean, he has Gameweek 36, which is a smaller double with Newcastle and Brighton. He has triple Brighton and double Newcastle, so he probably has a decent bench for that. He has Gameweek 37, where he can also use the bench boosts as well. I think the thing with Chemo as well is just he pretty much every season he does the triple captain in Gameweek 38 because that's such a high scoring game week. But that's also a single game week, so that's why I'm not 100% on board with that strategy myself. You know how I feel about triple captaining double game week players, or triple game week players if that's the case. But yeah, for me, I probably would do the triple captainship and just use your bench boost later, because I used my bench boost previously, and sure, I got like 30 points from the bench in that game week, but I also spent -12 to get that bench in place, and I wish I just did less moves and had the bench boost for later. That's usually not what I say for my strategy for bench boost, but I think Haaland, Fulham away and West Ham at home, I think that triple captain opportunity, considering the form is in and how he's chasing the records, that might be the right play. But again, the thing with Haaland is the fixture congestion. Like, they have a huge semi-final in the Champions League against Real Madrid. We're both rooting for City like crazy against Real Madrid, facing either Milan, which is Chemo's favorite team, or Inter in the final. So yeah, that's the only thing with Haaland. Like, that would be my dilemma if I wanted to go triple captain or bench boost if I'm in Chemo's place. will Haaland play in both matches or not? Because I think if he plays in both, it's triple captaincy for me.
I think he'll play in both. However, it might be a situation of like if West Ham get pumped in the first half, like what happened recently where he scored a brace and then it was like, yep, see ya.
Yeah.
That could easily be the case. And that's the only thing that makes you go like, oh. However, if City are running right, it's thanks to him. So yeah, just go for it. I think personally, I see why he's bench boosting, or wants to bench boost, but like even there's no guarantee that Everton at home with both Castagna and Iverson's gonna lead to that crazy amount of points. I mean, I guess the reason why he might do it is because of Isak and I guess Kufal. Because he would be starting Shaw over Kufal in this actual starting lineup, right? So
Yeah, if he does
or
the move,
or Stones. Yeah, I don't actually hate the triple captain shout. And if there is any time to triple captain, this is the options, like really good options. I mean, Brighton options don't suck. City options don't suck. Spurs, um, Liverpool options don't suck. United options don't suck. So, yeah, personally, I wouldn't see why you wouldn't triple captain. But if he wants to preciously save it for game week 38 just to have that edge on people, then go for it.
Yeah, this is another we talked about how Kimo loves Kevin De Bruyne. He doesn't have Kevin De Bruyne in his team, but he has one City spot open. So this is my final like super differential, super out there punt. But Salah to De Bruyne, triple captain De Bruyne. seeing as Kimo triple captain De Bruyne last season when he scored 4 goals against Wolverhampton, it would sort of be tradition for him to do De Bruyne, and he loves De Bruyne. And
Yeah.
De Bruyne is probably the more likely to play in both matches as well, rather than Haaland, because De Bruyne has been rested more, and Haaland is more like it's more scary with him and injuries in terms of Champions League. So yeah, I think that would also be just because Kimo has a lot to catch up, and triple captain De Bruyne would be the biggest differential as well, because not a lot of people have De Bruyne, and most people have Salah and Haaland and don't have the money to get De Bruyne in. So I think that would be a really interesting option as well. But yeah, that's just a huge punt when everyone else goes for Haaland captain. But
I don't hate it, especially considering the fact, like we've said, Julian Alvarez just signed a long-term contract. You can't make him unhappy by not playing him. Who would he replace? It obviously either be Grealish, to be fair, it could be Grealish,
yeah,
or it's obviously Holland. So, yeah, I agree with that. I actually don't hate that shout.
yeah. Only reason I hate it is because you have to sell Salah, and
Yeah, exactly, and that's not great.
That's not great. So yeah, that's just a huge out there punt. But I just figured it was fun to just mention it. But yeah, that's Kimo's team. Hope you're watching Kimo, and he's going to be back for next week. He also had a bit of an accident now coming back to Norway, so wish him well as well. Not going to mention more about that, but anyways, moving on. This is the manager of the week, Jeff. Like we said, we talked a bit about what he's going to do going forward, and this is his team for this double game week. So he has Suma actually with the double game week as well that we didn't mention earlier, but he also gets to play Trippier, like you said. Tony, you could sell him, but Tony plays Nottingham Forest at home, so I don't think I would sell him actually, because that's also a huge differential. So what do you think about this team in general? Like his single game week players are actually pretty good. Madison against Everton at home, Tony against Nottingham Forest at home, and then Trippier against Southampton at home. Is this also a case of just selling Trippier for Stones, or what is the play here?
To be fair, like looking on it like that, yeah. I mean, Crystal Palace away and City away isn't good. Like as you probably know, as a West Ham fan, you don't. Surely you do not have high hopes for both games.
West Ham, Crystal Palace could get something there. West Ham have actually looked pretty decent lately, so yeah, I don't mind Suma as well. He can pop up with a goal as well, so I don't mind the Suma pick. So yeah, I just keep him in the starting lineup, I guess.
He just likes people who kicks cats, but yeah. Other than that, that was kick. Anyways, it's just a question of whether he wants to get in another double game week player or not. I mean, I can see.
He has 0.9 in the bank and one transfer to play with as well. So if he's else, I don't know, Madison, he can get a 8.9 midfielder. Could go with someone like Foden or Maris, like a punt like that. Double game week City player. Or he could go with Luis Diaz, I guess, if he thinks he'll play. Or Gakpo. It's also another option.
Yeah.
So there's some options there, but I think Madison against Everton as well could also score a lot of points. Trippier, like we said, he has 6.8, so he can't afford Trent Alexander-Arnold, but he can afford both Robertson or Van Dijk, so he can do that as well, rather than doing Stones.
Yeah, and it was just the question of whether, he downgrades a Tony.
Tony, he does not have enough to get Jota. He has enough to get Firmino, but I don't think he's going to play. He does not have enough to get Darwin either.
Why? What price is Jota for him not to be able to get?
Jota's 8.7 and Tony is like 7.
Holy crap!
6?
I do not remember the fact that Jota.
Yeah, he started at 9 as well.
Okay.
Me.
Yeah, it's just. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is if he does Tony and Madison for KDB and someone, but when you already have Grealish, who cares? So,
he could also sell Ben White rather than selling Trippier, so he keeps Trippier for the double game week in 36. He has 5.7 with that, so he can still get Stones.
Yeah,
that's still get one of the Man United guys.
That is the best shout.
He could sell Mings to get Shaw, but Mings has been really good for him. So.
Arsenal are bottling it hard, so
yeah.
And to be fair, they've been playing without Saliba as well, so yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what we landed on. White.
I think
Ben White to Stones.
I think White to Stones, and
Let's
then
take a look at what that looks like.
It becomes a question of who do you bench, and is it Tony, is it Madison, or is it Trips? I'd personally say it's Zuma. So yeah.
Yeah. You do this.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Zuma will be here.
I mean, like you said, you can always pop up with a go on. Crystal Palace away isn't the hardest game in some sense, and fight for survival or whatever. Yeah. I think this might be the best optimal lineup.
Personally, I'd bench Trippier just because I'm a West Ham fan, and Trippier has just been disappointing lately. So, but who knows? Could be the 15 points.
Typical. It's so typical if Trippier scores a free kick and all this type of stuff. So, but we'll see. Yeah. Southampton. How did Southampton do at the end? Did they lose?
They lost 1-0 against Bournemouth. They had a goal chalked off for offside after VAR, like really late. So,
classic.
Unlucky for them, but Bournemouth seems like they're staying up, and I think it's good for them. Tavernier scored again today, and I think they have really good players. And yeah, I'm gonna big up Bournemouth. That's a good team because they just lost 4-0 to West Ham. So, so yeah. But anyways, that is Jeff, the top manager in the FPL Scope Mini League currently. And if you want to join and be the manager of the week, you can go to the league section in Fantasy Premier League and put in the league code that you see above me here, 6IYV7U, and you can be the manager of the week, just like Jeff. And you can be number 1 in our league, just like Jeff as well. Other than that, all the typical stuff, like, share, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and I already mentioned the league. And as always, wrapping up this about 1 hour episode, going close to 1 a.m. for me currently with work tomorrow. I'll let Kevin have the final word.
Fuck Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. Knicks in 5. Take care.
See ya.